Hello, welcome to a new episode of Reddit Readings. Today, we are listening to this week's top stories from the subreddit, Today I Fucked Up. Hope you all will enjoy this episode of Fuck Ups. Reddit Readings, Episode 22. Today I fucked up by wearing a shawl, which ruined my relationship with my girlfriend. Minor background, I am a pretty affectionate, and at times, effeminate dude. I'm 6'2" and have a pretty tough guy background, and that I was in special forces a while ago, and my roommates all served as well. But I also have thin wrists and sit on my friends' laps and blow kisses to them and shit. I'm not gay, I just am me. So while I was in a shop with a roommate a few weeks ago, he saw these really cool shawls that we both couldn't get out of our heads. He returned last weekend to buy them, and now we have these shawls. Mine makes me look like a Star Wars character and his looks like the outlaw Josie Wales. These are seriously awesome shawls. The first night we wore them, everybody at the dive bar we went to, only dudes, thought they were awesome as well. Then this girl and her friend arrive on invite from my shawl bro, and they are seriously turned off by our sweet shawls, like, acting pretty weird about them and making comments, whatever. So I get a call from my girlfriend. She's tired and wants to hang out at mine, and so I bid these mean girls and shawl bro goodbye and head home. I'm still wearing the shawl when my GF arrives, and she's also really taken aback. She won't even kiss me until I take it off. We do the deed and go to sleep, and the next morning she starts asking me if I'm gay, and she's really serious and aggressive about it. I tell her I'm not, that if I was I'd definitely know if by now, and she counters with her major evidence of the fact that I own a shawl. Anyway, she gets weird and leaves, and then sends me a text later about how she's sorry and that she needs to think about what kind of man she wants, and then doesn't contact me for days. So yesterday I invite her out. She's stumbling over her words and talking about how she likes tough guys and how she grew up in the South and needs to get used to the big city, but that she doesn't know this or that. And eventually I just tell her very politely to get fucked because I'm pretty insulted by this point. On the way back, now that I'm not directly in front of her, I get this long apologetic text from her, but the crux of it is that she's just not that into me anymore because I wore a shawl. Later on, I tell my shawl bro about this, and he also had a blowout with a girl he was seeing over his shawl that very same night we went out. We are both going to keep wearing the shawls though, they are warm. Today I fucked up by accidentally revealing to my whole family that I masturbate every morning. This happened a couple hours ago and they're still laughing. I was visiting my parents' house for dinner with my family, and almost everyone in my family of 7 got Apple Watches recently, and was talking about fitness tracking and heart rate monitoring. They're all health nuts, and we got to the topic of resting heart rates and sleeping patterns. And I was looking at my sleep monitoring and realized that my heart rate aggressively spikes every morning when I wake up. So I brought it up with them, and everyone was trying to think of what I could possibly be doing in the morning that causes my heart rate spike to an active heart rate so quickly. My sister and mom realized at the same time and started dying laughing until I realized what the first thing I do in the morning. Today I fucked up by telling someone he had something on his trailer dragging. Happened this morning. About 5 hours ago, I was on my way to work, following a guy towing a trailer behind him. I noticed some sparks coming from somewhere underneath the trailer. Normally, I wouldn't think twice about it, but I was having an especially good morning and wanted to help. Plus he was hauling a decent sized excavator and didn't want something to happen to it, because it looked pretty new. We pull up to a stoplight, and I hop out of my truck to run up to him and let him know. Apparently he didn't see me, because when I said excuse me, his window was open. He turned and punched me in the jaw. Being one who didn't want to escalate the situation, I let him know about the trailer and proceeded to apologize for scaring him. As I turned around to go back to my truck, the light turned green. The way this intersection is, there is the lights we were waiting at and another light 50 back down the road to tell incoming traffic what the light is, as it's somewhat of a blind curve. As I'm walking back to my truck, a woman comes around the corner and slams into the back of my truck, pushing it forwards into me. It didn't move very fast, but hit me hard enough to knock me over and crack a few ribs. She then gets out and yells at me for being stopped at the intersection as I'm laying on the ground in quite a bit of pain. The way she viewed it, I was an 18-year-old kid who got out of my truck to do something stupid. The cops got there and she got cuffed after trying to assault one of the officers. Today I fucked up by shaving my butthole before a first date. So the fuck up happened last night, but this requires some background explanation. This is gonna be TMI, but that's kinda the nature of TIFU, so whatever. I'm a sporty person, mountain biking, hiking year round, etc. I also have apparently a hairy butthole, which means wiping the ol pooper can be somewhat of a chore at times. Sometimes, not everything gets removed, and I don't know if you have ever let somewhat digested stomach acid aka the Taco Bell runs, gently rub between your greater cheeks for an entire day before, but it ain't fun. So I had the bright idea to shave my bunghole. Less hair, less cleanup, less chance of rectum related rashes on the next mountain bike ride. So I trimmed it off at night, added some Aquaphor to the affected area. That stuff is magic, and the wiping job is smooth as butter the next day. Win-win. Fast forward 2 days, and I'm going on a first date with a pretty cute girl. Classic dinner and dessert kinda thing, cause she's like the best looking girl I've dated, so I wanna shell out the monies of course. Dinner went pretty well, and we got Colston afterward, and then we decided to head to my place, hoping my roommates aren't home, for a movie. Turns out they aren't home, which is extra nice, because we both were throwing mad hints to each other about how attractive we found each other. But, guys, I can feel it building inside me. The gas, not the sexual tension unfortunately. We're sitting there on the couch watching a movie, and I just had to let one out. I'm usually pretty good at silent farts, so I'm not paying attention to the fact that we're in a quiet spot in the movie, and this fart was not silent. It was the loudest, flappiest, most percussive fart I've ever had in my entire life. Hands down. I was mortified. She immediately turned her head toward me with an expression of pure disgust, and I of course was super smooth about it and tried to awkward laugh it off, which is my response to most tense social situations. She did not laugh with me. No text backs so far. I googled it this morning, and it turns out shaving your butt makes your farts extra loud, cause your butt cheeks slap around with no hair to muffle the sound. So a little. Today I learned, there are few inside this TIFU. Just waiting for my anal fuzz to grow back now, so I can go on dates again. Today I fucked up by quoting Thanos, while arguing with my girlfriend. Throwaway account for privacy. This happened yesterday and I don't know how to make it up. My girlfriend and I met at university 4 years ago, and we both graduated some time ago. Since then we've both been looking for work, but the research is more difficult than we thought, and until yesterday neither of us had managed to get a job. Yesterday my girlfriend received a positive answer to one of her applications, for a job located 430 kilometers from our hometown. She was very happy and that's how she told me to come to her house to tell me some good news about the research. So expecting some good news, I took a detour to buy her sushi because we both love it, and I arrived at her house early in the evening, and that's when she tells me that in 2 weeks she's going to go more than 400 kilometers from our city, and that I now have to look in the same area as her. I totally lost my mind when she told me that. I explained that I understand that the research is complicated, but that it was no reason to look at work across the country, and that I had no desire to leave my family and friends because my life is in my hometown. The situation then became very tense. She told me that I am selfish and that I have to learn to move away, that even if there is no urgency, it is important to find a job quickly so as not to remain inactive. I then offered her a long-distance relationship for a few months because I really don't want to leave, and she could come back as soon as she found a job in our city, and that, guys, she took it really hard. I've never seen her so upset in my life. She then gave me an ultimatum. Either I follow her or we stop our relationship, and she asks me if I'm really ready to leave her to stay with my family and friends. Maybe some people can see it, but this is the moment I fucked up. I still don't know why my brain betrayed me like that, but the only answer I could find was, perhaps, maybe it is a small price to pay for salvation. I could have made long rants to show her that I love her, that I care about her. I could have found arguments so that we could solve the situation, as any person in a relationship for 4 years would do. But no, my fucking stupidity made me quote a purple guy. She looked at me with an empty look for several seconds. I realized how much I fucked up, but nothing came from my mouth. She just asks me to leave her house, and since yesterday she speak to me or answer my calls and messages. I sent her a very long message of apology, adding that I hope we will be able to resolve the situation, but still no answer. I am now staring my Thanos Funko Pop thinking how much this guy may have ruined part of my life. Today I fucked up by thinking my Welsh, English bilingual boyfriend was having a stroke. I caused a car crash. I've been with him for roughly a month and I knew he spoke Welsh fluently, but I've never heard him or anyone speak Welsh. We are driving to his house and he's on a call with one of his friends, so I'm just sat on my phone, relaxing, enjoying the hills. Well, he suddenly starts speaking Welsh and flinging his arms around, apparently having some sort of an argument. I've never heard Welsh before and to be honest, it sounded more like lots of slurring. I legitimately thought he was having a stroke, so I grabbed the steering wheel. He did the exact same thing but in the opposite direction. He outstrengthed me. We span around on the road and came to a stop. He was so confused as to why I randomly grabbed the wheel. I explained the situation and now his Welsh family and friends are having a great laugh at my mono language self. Today I fucked up by broadcasting porn to my son's room. This happened to me 30 minutes ago, and I didn't know what to do, so I am going to chronicle it here. It all started with my son asking if I could use AirPlay to stream some League of Legends games to his TV since Worlds are going on. I was reluctant at first since it was almost his bedtime. However, I figured what the hell, I do things like that all the time, so I should go ahead and let him watch until 12ish. He tells me what games he wants to watch and I set up the connection and explained to him that I would let him stay up until 12. However, he isn't to tell his mom because she would kill me since his bedtime is 10. My wife works from home and does most of her work at night, while everyone is in bed because me and my son are loud and obnoxious. At the time of the incident she is in her office, which is across the hall from my son's room, with the door locked while she is working. I was watching some Carnival Row and I said to myself, now is an opportune time to strudel the old noodle. I pull out my phone and go to my incognito mode, gotta be safe, and proceed to search me out a suitable video. After a few minutes of searching I found some material and decided to go ahead and start it while I gathered the appropriate tools for the job. I press play and lay my phone on the bed and go grab some lotion and tissues. I jumped back into bed, placed my items beside of me and reached for my phone. That is when I realized it. I am panicking. Fuck. Across my screen it has AirPlay and my son's TV was selected. 2 minutes has passed in the video and I thought okay, maybe nothing has showed yet, so I changed it back to League and started to gather myself to go talk to him. That is when I hear it. My wife is screaming to the top of her lungs and I hear my son pleading with her and I hear him say something about dad, you little tattletale. She is on a warpath now. Oh. I start panicking. Oh shit. It is like getting caught watching porn by your own mom. Then things go silent, and I know she is coming for me. I hastily throw the tissues and lotion under the bed and roll over and try to pretend I went to sleep. She kicks the door open, and I pressing my head through my pillow at this moment. She screams my name. My mind went blank and I made a snoring sound. That was probably the real fuck up. I heard her say, oh, this bitch going to pretend to be asleep. Okay. I decided I needed to answer her or I am a dead man. I rolled over and said, yay. At this point I am waiting for her to make like a cartoon and turn into a steam whistle. She proceeds to chew me a new one. To paraphrase something like, here I am working, then I hear people fucking across the hall and come to find out you're streaming porn to his room. Blah blah irresponsible. Blah blah dumbus. Blah blah sleeping on the couch. She storms off and I heard her office door slam. I gather a blanket and my pillow and go to the couch. My son's door is shut and I don't want to press my luck as I walk by. I head to the couch and thought, you know this needs to go to TIFU, and here I am. Hopefully she doesn't smother me in my sleep. Today I fucked up by letting brain go automatic at the gym. Obligatory. This happened last week. Disclosure. When I go to the gym, I put in my earphones and let the music absorb me. It eases the rest of the workout because it all feels like one swift process, and my brain goes on automatic, reflexively doing everything without strong conscious focus from me. That's usually not an issue, but, well, It was time for my chest workout and I spotted a pair of benches lined up together, with the heads right against one another. One of them was free, and the other was occupied by a dude. Now, this man was something. He looked like he was the sole supreme warrior of all the lands of Pakistan. Biceps and triceps bulging so much they look like they about to spill onto the ground and start lifting weights themselves. Likely eats the equivalent of a Hindu holy cow in his daily protein shakes. Fully absorbed by Sire's chanting in my ears, I walk over. Routinely, I remove the clamps and weights of the previous user on my bar and start searching for some 5 kilograms weights. I take a few steps around, eyes scanning the floor and many racks for them, and my eyes finally set on a nice, jungle green pair sitting on a rack. Dutifully, I start removing the clamp on the rack as to reach the 5 kilogram weight, with only a small, nagging voice in the back of my head wondering, why is there a clamp on this rack, and began to pull out the weight, and then, it happened. The enchanting harmony of Sire's voice was penetrated by a booming, "Hey." My hands freeze, and my neck cranes upwards to see Commander Pakistan himself lying down on his bench, looking ready to start his bench press with his hands gripping the bar above him, which just so happened to line up perfectly with the rack I was dealing with. Oh, that's when it dawned on me. The rack I was pulling weights off was, in fact, the bar he was using, and I was about to casually give this guy a serious injury had he lifted the bar. Ignorant to my oblivious meddling, I ripped out my earphones, threw my hands back, and immediately started to apologize. Initially, I saw only trickles of smoke toot out the ears of our South Asian demigod, indicating he was only slightly pissed. Later he seemed to find it funny, even cordially giving me tips for my workout. Very chill guy, but damn, boys and girls, my automatism could have seriously injured someone, and boy did I fuck up. Today I fucked up by finding out my dad is dating a MILF I took home from a bar over a year ago, and slept with multiple times. Hey Reddit, throw away because I really don't want this on my main and it getting linked back to me. Obligatory. The TIFU technically happened over a year ago but it hit me today at lunch. Okay, so I'll start off by saying my mother and father divorced 5.5 years ago. My mom has remarried but my dad has been very hit and miss with his dating luck. When he first started dating women I'd always get introduced to them early, and then they would disappear off the face of the earth. So I asked my dad to not introduce me to anyone until they are serious and have been together for at least 3 or 4 months. A bit of backstory so y'all can see where this is going. Last July to be exact, me and some buddies were out at a bar, and being young competitive men saw some older ladies out at the bar, mid-40s, and had a bit of a joke around that none of us would be able to take any of them home. Well, about 10 drinks and a few hours later our little laugh turned into a serious competition. We went over, introduced ourselves, had small talk about what they are doing out, were a bit flirty etc. and hit them up for a bit of a dance. I got talking to an absolutely fit, stunning dark-haired lady who I'll call Susan. We were flirting, having a dance and a good time. I got her some drinks and could tell she was having a great time. Anyway, as the night progressed I thought I'd shoot my shot and see if I could take a MILF home. I found out that she had 2 kids, one who was only a year younger than me. Here I am, fulfilling one of my biggest fantasies. So I get her Uber for us and she comes back to my apartment. We had really good sex and I got her number the next day after I drove her back to her car. We hooked up 2 more times before I met my current girlfriend. Well, a couple of weeks ago my dad calls me and tells me he wants me to meet this woman he has been dating for 5 months. He told me a bit about her, including that her name was Susan but we live in a pretty big city and I never thought anything of it. Somehow of everything he told me nothing registered in my brain. He had said she had 2 kids a similar age to me, and most importantly that they had really hit things off and he really enjoyed her company and wasn't feeling lonely for the first time in years. Anyway, he asked me to come for lunch today to meet her and was really excited. I got to lunch around 15 minutes early and was waiting for my dad and the new lady he's dating to show up. And lo and behold I see my dad pull up out the front of the cafe we are having lunch at, and see him and the new lady get out of the car. At this point I did the biggest double take of my life. Surely it couldn't be, but it was. My dad, for 5 months has been dating the MILF I took home from a bar over a year ago. I nearly had a panic attack. As soon as they walked in, my dad pointed at the table that I was sitting at and I saw Susan's face screw up. She was walking behind my dad and just pulled a face that said, "Don't you dare say anything right now." So I sat through the most awkward 45-minute lunch of my life, sweating profusely with my dad asking me if I was alright because I looked sick. I can't even remember what we talked about at lunch because the whole time I realized that me and my dad are tunnel buddies now, and I honestly am at a loss for what will even happen next. I want to talk my dad, but I can't even imagine the conversation at this stage. I'm hoping Susan breaks things off and it doesn't go any further. How the fuck does this even happen? It's like the plot to a bad porn movie. Today I fucked up by calling the police on my own surprise party. Obligatory. This didn't happen today, it actually happened almost 10 months back. A little bit of context. I am an 18-year-old male living in Austria, with my parents and twin sister currently, and I have never really celebrated my birthday by throwing a party for my friends. So my friends decided to throw me a surprise party for my 18th birthday at my parents' house. The fuck up happened the day after my birthday actually. On my actual birthday my family and I celebrated my sister's and my birthday by eating a slice of cake and getting some small presents. Nothing special. Since my birthday was on a Sunday, I had to go to school the next day. Only a few days left before the holidays started. Since it was Monday I had a few more hours of mandatory extra chemistry lab which took until around 5 PM. So by the time I was heading home it was already quite dark. I figured I would be home alone for at least a few hours, since my parents both worked late on Mondays and probably would get home at around 10 or 11, and my sister almost always spent her evening at her girlfriend's house, so I assumed I wouldn't see her either. Now to the actual fuck up. When I arrived at the bus stop near my house it was already really dark and only the street lanterns lit up the streets. On the way home from the bus stop I saw the light in our house go on for a few seconds and immediately go back off. I was instantly alarmed as I knew no one should be home at the moment. So I went up closer to the house and checked our driveway if any car was there. There was no car, so neither my parents nor my sister should be home, as my mother and father always left with one car in the morning and my sister always took the other one when driving to her GF. At this point my heart rate was probably around 170 already. I remained in the driveway for a few seconds and then I actually heard a voice from inside, which sounded like a male's voice. Although I didn't recognize it, I completely freaked out. I backed off really quickly from the house towards the other side of the street and called to police from behind some bushes on the roadside. I told them I heard a voice inside of our house. Although no one should be there, they told me to stay calm, keep my distance and that they would send a unit down here ASAP. Around 15 minutes later the police arrived and surrounded the house. There were around 4 policemen women there, and one of them knocked on the door. No response. At this point even a few more police officers had arrived. They got out of the car with some kind of battering ram. Long story short, they broke down the front door and ran into the house with their tasers or guns or something out. Couldn't really see all that much in the dark, and shouted something like, "Police, show us your hands." When that happened I could hear shrieks and screams and people being escorted out of the house to our front yard. You guessed it right. They were my friends and my sister, who had, intelligent as she is, parked her car somewhere else to make me think she isn't home. I instantly tried to defuse the situation and apologized profusely to the police officers who had just tried to arrest my closest friends. In the end, my friends invited the policemen women in for a cup of coffee and a slice of cake, although they sadly couldn't stay for more than a few minutes since they got a message over their walkie-talkie thingies and they had to set off immediately. Ever since this has happened we have a great story to laugh about at every single birthday party. Thanks for listening to Reddit Readings episode 22, and if you enjoyed it, consider subscribing and leaving a rating.